Today on Toy Shoes for 22, we're started off right. Welcome back, everyone, and Happy New Year to you all. Today, very excited, we're going to be checking out the entirety of McFarlane Toys' sophomore year behind the DC Multiverse line for 2021. A ton of figures this year. A lot of hits, a lot of misses, a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of new things, but generally just a lot of figures. And being that it's the DC Multiverse line, there was a lot of different characters. A lot of Batman, not gonna lie, 14, 15, 16 Batman, something like that. But in either case, something for everyone, from comics to movies to all the various properties that they have going forward. So to really kick it off, we'll do the always my favorites, or at least the ones that I had a blast with, in all honesty. So this one right here, this was more towards the end of 2021 with the three Jokers. Now, again, if you haven't read the storyline, it's pretty good. It takes a long time to get to like one main end of the line aspect of what they're trying to do with the story, but it was pretty good. Pretty good for recent DC Comics, let's just be quite honest. But this is the Killing Joke Joker. And this is the one true Joker. If you've not read the story, well, you should have. This is the real Joker out of the three. And there's not really too much going on with this figure, but the face sculpt, the paint that they put on the eyes, just the overall nostalgic look of all the Jokers that really kind of came out this year. And there were a couple, especially in the Mortal Kombat line. You had one there too. But this guy personifies the old school nature of what I like about DC Comics. You had three other Jokers, all of which had their good points and awkward points, we'll just say. A lot of diaper action going on. But if you had one Joker and you took all three of these heads and you gave him a couple accessories, you would have a solid Joker lineup. Now, I do like the Clown Joker. The Criminal Joker kind of goes either way for me. But in either case, a lot of Jokers, and the Killing Joke was of my favorites. Like BATGIRL as well. Now, again, much like the Killing Joke Joker, this particular Batgirl, let's say the costume, even though it does harken back to a lot of the looks I think of for Batgirl, this is her three Jokers incarnation, but it really stays true to the character and what I think of. It doesn't have anything weird to it. It doesn't have the death metal vibe or anything like that. It's more of a classic looking Batgirl, or what I think of when I read comics back in the day growing up. So I like the cape, I like the yellow, she's got the really nice red hair, she's well articulated, and it's just a really nice looking figure. And I think, again, when it comes to DC Comics, they're really, as far as the comic books, we'll just say, they're really all over the place in terms of story. This character is now this character. This character has this version. They rebirthed it, and everything's a mishigash now, where I'm having a hard time. So when I go, it's too much, I harken back to what I know and what I really like. So this Batgirl really does hit it on all notes of nostalgia, and she's a pretty darn good figure. Now, to kind of shift the tone, right, from comic books to movie properties, I have not been the biggest fan of recent DC Comics movies. I did not care for the Snyder Cut. I did like Aquaman, I liked the first Wonder Woman, I like Shazam, things of that nature. But when you finally got to the Polka Dot Man from the Suicide Squad, the only Suicide Squad as far as I'm concerned, they did it up right. This is David Dastmalchian, the actor. I think they actually did a really good job capturing his likeness. He comes with the goggles. He's such a ridiculous character, and there was such a ridiculous movie, but it was so overly comic booky, and that's what I like. The Marvel stuff can really go either way, especially now. I think Spider-Man kind of brought us back a little bit, but DC Comics needs a win, and they got one in the Suicide Squad. And while not every figure McFarlane did for the Suicide Squad is top-notch, the Polka Dot Man stayed on my shelf since the day I got him, and he's been there. ever since. I love this guy. I love that he throws polka dots. It's ridiculous. I hope they bring him back somehow, some way. Now, to shift from movies to, we'll say, borderline cartoons, because we all know this is based off Batman Beyond, and Batman Beyond started off as a excellent animated cartoon. But these figures tend to gravitate more towards the comic book aspect of Batman Beyond. This is Shriek, a character I have been wanting made as an action figure since I saw it. They never did it in the Batman Beyond series with Hasbro. They never did it after that. DC Direct never did it in the animated line. He's such a cool, well-designed character, deals with sound. And McFarlane, even though they released two different versions, and yes, it would have been nice to just get one, and you got the head, and you got the sound effects, and everything else like that. They didn't go that route, but this is one of those rare times where I had to have both because it was so well done. That is Walter Shreve right there. That looks amazing. The white, the black, everything works on this guy. The sound effects, hands down, one of the best figures McFarlane has done thus far. But that's nothing compared to Lobo here. And to kind of talk about this for a second, a lot of times recently, we'll say in the last couple months, McFarlane Toys has been releasing promo photos of their figures, to which a lot of people, including me, go, yeah, okay, well, we know these are prototypes. Hopefully they look better in person. And I'm happy to say that when I first saw the Lobo figure, I was like, okay, yeah. It came out so much better, in fact, and he has little dabs of blue in the hair. That is Lobo to me. Even though it's kind of more the most recent look, per se, for Lobo, it's still a classic version of Lobo. You really can't deter too far from the guy. He is missing a little bit of paint here and there. However, the back of the jacket that says "Bite Me, Fanboys," I mean, that's amazing. That's like a little fourth wall breakage, tongue-in-cheek meta joke right there. So I do like his chain accessory. It's nothing special. Of course, we expect a lot from McFarlane, like real chains and stuff. But for what this figure is, the price point and the enormousness of this guy, yeah, he's pretty dang cool. Same thing with Blight here. Now, this is a figure where, I'll be honest, I wasn't too stoked because, again, this deals more with the comic book aspect of Batman Beyond than the typical, he's got his Sunday best suit on going on Blight. But this guy grew on me, and it was even better in person, which is always a nice surprise. He comes with an ungloved power effect, and that's a look, that's a hand right from the cartoon when he was in that Mr. Freeze episode. He looks right at it and goes, you know, Blight will do. So I like that. It brings forth all the nostalgic moments and the ideas and what you think the character sounds like. He has a really nicely done, nicely designed suit to him. The greens, the purples. I really like the Ghost Rider type dome head. I think it works. Yes, could have been a little bit clearer. I did hear people when I did the video that, yeah, it could have been a little bit clearer to see, but you shine a light behind him, you look up close, it's pretty visible, and it looks great. And I hear you can pop the head out if you want. Won't be doing that. But in either case, Blight is definitely a great figure. The BATMEN'S, right? You all knew this was coming. Everyone always comments, oh, is it another Batman? Or, oh, hey, I'm glad it's not another Batman. Well, these are all the BATMEN'S that I like this year from McFarlane Toys. And even though I have 30,000 Batman figures, you can't knock a really good looking figure. And I'm a sucker for when, and this is a good thing that McFarlane does, they match what you see in the comic books so well. Like Greg Capullo's artwork, right? Translates so well. We knew that back in the days with Spawn. These are my favorites. They all have little weird things, good things, odd things. They're nothing that fantastic, but you're a fan of the source material, they're definitely cool. Moving back into the singular figures, this is the non-Target exclusive Batman Beyond figure. This is the one that everybody wanted. This is the one that comes with the jetpacks and the wings, and he's got the flight stand, and he's got the weapons and such. This is pretty much one of the best Batman Beyond figures, even though it has some odd things to it. I'm not a huge fan of the wings, but then again, it's nothing overly, like, you set them on your shelf and you're kind of done with it. It works when you want to use the wings. I popped mine out, I flipped it over. It looks good displayed on the shelf. You can pop in the rocket boots. I like his batarangs. Everything about this figure is more so the comic book than the cartoon, but it does harken back enough for me to appreciate it. Plus, there's not a whole heck of a lot of Batman Beyond merchandise on the shelf, so I kind of have to say, in so many ways, which is a good thing and a bad thing, that, yeah, it's all we got. So might as well enjoy the best of it. Yes, there could have been a lot better design aspects, different ways the wings clip on. Doesn't distract from the fact that it's a pretty cool, well-articulated Batman Beyond action figure, and you should definitely grab it. Moving on into the year twos of Batman Blues. This is the year 2 Batman, which is a Target exclusive. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, wait a minute, I haven't gotten mine just yet. Well, I've started to see that Target is sending out their shipping notices, so hopefully, depending on when you see this, you'll have it very, very soon. But yes, this Batman year 2 figure is, again, kind of like a weird meta joke about old McFarlane Toys and Spawn figures and how they kind of used to do it, where it's, all their figures are always a statue. Less articulated, they just stand there, they don't do much. Well, this kind of combines the best of both worlds. You have a excellent, really articulated Batman. You have a really nice cloth cape to him. Yes, the boots are wrong, I know. Some of the gloves, not exactly spot on either. But it's a great figure because you pop the arms off, you put it inside the big plastic cape up on his graveyard scene stand, and it makes for one awesome figure. This is the Batman figure I think everybody should have if you are collecting McFarlane Toys. Now, these are the ones that I will say that they stand out for the purpose of they are the new costumes or they are the new characters. This is the new era of DC Comics. And like it or lump it, it is what it is these days. The days that I remember, the days that I really, really love and cherish of DC Comics are behind us. We've got Rebirth. We've got everything happening now after Death Metal. So for newer figures, these are really some of the top-notch sculpts. And I will say that the Omega Batman, entirely too small, makes it still a dang good sculpt. It's a gorgeous-looking Wonder Woman, even though she's a Death Metal Wonder Woman. Lex Luthor, he's the most classic-ish looking of them all, even though his power suit is a little bit different. And then you have a new look for Etrigan as well. He does look good, but again, I think of the old Jack Kirby reds and yellows sort of deal with Etrigan. And then you have the Drowned, which is an excellent female figure. She's female Bruce Wayne, but you read the comics, you'll figure it out. But in either case, while these are the new versions of the characters I'm not well adverse to, they are some pretty dang good toys. Now, there were collect-to-build figures for McFarlane this year. Now, this Bane figure went through a lot of controversy online, people saying, the legs don't attach and everything else. Well, I will tell you this. The legs do attach, and they do fit, and they work once you get them in there, but you had to work at it. You had to heat it up. You had to use all your tips and tricks. So this BANE-CROW, even though it's, again, not exactly everyone's cup of tea or favorite look for Bane, being that it comes from the comic book Last Night on Earth, and being that he has a pretty much surgically applied scarecrow corpse stuck to his back, I mean, it's pretty dang cool. This is what I think about when McFarlane took over. I go, we're going to get all these wackadoo monsters and stuff, and this epitomizes it. And this is a hulking mass of a figure. Scarecrow is basically an accessory pack to building this guy. Yes, they should have been one, basically. But this is a great looking figure. It worked well, except for the wrists. I'll totally agree on that. The wrists still pop out to this day. The sculpt itself was awesome. Big, chunky, huge figure. And the legs do stay on, right? They twist. He just didn't have that much articulation in the legs. It really was what it was, and they do fit on, and he doesn't fall apart, or any of those other things that were said at the time when this figure came out. So, if you're a fan of specific comic book lines, or if you're a fan of just awesome action figures, yes, I highly recommend this BANE-CROW. Now, as the year went on, we got introduced to mega figures. These were not build-to-figures. These were just giant figures on their own. Higher price point, a little bit extra paint, a little bit extra accessories here and there. But in either case, if you got the non-bloodied Walmart exclusive King Shark or just the standard one, you were sitting pretty well. This, again, coupled with my love for the Suicide Squad, as soon as I got this figure, he stood with the polka dot man right there on my desk. He's a great figure. He's a lot of fun. We can't do guns anymore, DC Comics, for whatever reason. I hope that changes in 2022. But this guy, he comes with some severed legs and severed arms. So that kind of stuff is okay, right? Blood splash mouth is okay. But we can't do, guns and ammo and all that kind of stuff. Please change that. That's one thing I'm really looking forward to changing in 2022. But please don't ever change this King Shark. Continuing on with the mega figures from King Shark to Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing, I'll say hands down, one of my favorite figures of this year. But he has some big problems, and it stems, no joke intended, from the ball-jointed ankles. And all of these figures, we're going to be quite honest here, they need to change the articulation, at least in those areas, because they become increasingly difficult to stand. And with the sheer size of Swamp Thing, you can see he needs 2 stands to stand. And that's not a good thing. You can get him set up, of course, on your shelf. Yeah, he'll stay there. But we're swiveling around a little lazy Susan kind of thing. Yeah, he's going to fall over. In the slightest touch, yeah, he falls over. So really got to work on the ball joints. That's a big thing. But from the sculpt to the paint to the look, even though it's like the Rebirth, much like Batgirl and all the other figures on my list, it harkens back to a time where I resonate with the character. I recognize there's enough there to recognize for these characters. And that's why Swamp Thing is one of my favorites for 2021. Now, from figures to vehicles, we had a host of 7-inch scale vehicles for these figures. The Bat Bike, pretty dang awesome. Even though it had more of a rat face than a bat face, if you look at the artwork, it's very little minute touches that kind of changes it, but it came out good. And then you had the Curse of the White Knight, or Batman White Knight Bat Cycle, which harkens back to Batman the Animated Series, Sean Gordon Murphy being a big fan of that, incorporating a lot of the visuals from Batman the Animated Series into that. So again, at the price points, yeah, these were great vehicles to have. I'll tell you right now, the stands that certain 2-packs came from, or single packs Batman Year 2, largely hit and miss. Some were great, some were fire. But in either case, more so work on those. I think those need definite improvements. You got lucky on a few of them. And then the chair, right? To point out that there's a chair. Let's just do this. There we go. The chair. It was fantastic. More chair accessories, right? 2022. And then what doesn't work, right? All these repaints, all the different looks that could, a lot of people say, be achieved if you just put an extra head in the packaging. Well, if you look at it in the business sense, you got to keep the money going. Sometimes you need to get new figures out ASAP. And yes, it's not ideal, but to look at it at face value, that's where a lot of people see it and they go, why would I want that unmasked Jason Todd? Or why would I want an unmasked John Cena Peacemaker? Well, they get these figures out so that people will buy them. You make a little bit more, and then they can do new molds. They can do new faces. They can do all kinds of new stuff. So you have to build up capital in that sense, and releasing these, which you don't really need. And I've said that before when I looked at these in my videos. These are the variants that you don't really need. There's a white Flash as well. Why do we need an unmasked Jason Todd, especially since he doesn't have the guns? These are for specific people. And the idea of collecting them all is really kind of a fading notion. Between Marvel Legends and McFarlane Toys, we'll just say offhand, because there's so many put out every year, the idea of getting them all is just not feasible. And they don't look the best on your shelf. You don't really need these. I did not need a Wonder Woman with a Dr. Fate helmet, but I got it because I'm like, okay, I'm collecting these. It's fun. But really, for 2022, I'm going to focus on what I need, what I think looks good for the collection, not just buying out of necessity, but buying because I want it. I want it, it looks great, and sometimes, yeah, I'm going to run into a situation where maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe I thought, I didn't need it, and I do, or I grab it, and I definitely see again, I didn't need it. But in either case, these are the ones, these are the very idea that people get a lot of, well, say, they get heated about in some aspects, but really just ignore these figures. That's really what you got to do. They're going to move on. They're always going to keep having more and more figures, and eventually they will get to ones that you really do want to buy. And again, just to reiterate, the angle thing really has to change. These don't do the figures justice. They make them very, very top heavy and less Nightwings with diapers, we'll just say. So that's really going to do it for my entire look back at the sophomore year of McFarlane Toys' DC Multiverse lineup. Again, a lot of great things, a lot of good things, a lot of bad things, a lot of things that need to be changed, a lot of things that need just little tweaks, little fixes here and there. But ultimately, in the sense of a DC Multiverse line, there is a lot of stuff for a lot of different fans, a lot of different collectors, where again, you don't have to get it all. You can pick and choose what you want and what DC Comics means to you. The accessories, the weapons, the idea that you can't have guns with certain figures, I really hope that they can fix or find a way around that. Maybe accessory packs. Have McFarlane accessory packs, something like that. That would totally be cool. I think that McFarlane Toys was one of those companies that was definitely hit with delays this year. I know a lot of people still want year 2. And yes, they will be coming. More 3 Jokers will be coming and will be going into the 2022 year. They have teased some things so far. One in particular we never need to talk about again. But hey, we got Clayface and we got some Zod and Aquaman. Speaking of Aquaman, the side-eye thing. That needs to go. I'm just not happy with it. I would ask, please don't do that anymore. A lot of people, big fans, people that are just really into McFarlane Toys, they're not happy with it. I'm not happy with it. I really wish you wouldn't do it anymore. Vehicle-wise, keep those going. I think that's pretty cool. Let's get to a Batmobile. I'm looking forward to checking out the Batmobeast. So ridiculous. That's part of the fun, though, of the DC Multiverse line. A lot of it's ridiculous, and it's personified a lot in the DC Multiverse, for better or for worse. Yes, this is all ridiculous. We're all talking about action figures, but we're having a good time doing it. Not everything is going to work out all the time. Not every figure is going to be one that you want. But I will say this, based on my list, based on the figures that we looked at, I'm one of those DC Comics fans that, yes, I do reside in the 70s, 80s, 90s of DC Comics. All those eras, all those looks are very classic to me. So that's what I think of when the characters come out. So when I do see a Rebirth costume or something, largely going into 2022, I will probably pass on those just because I'm going to focus on the figures, on the characters that I want. Now, in terms of scalature, they did kind of improve upon that here and there. It still has a little bit to go, but that would be nice to see, so that if you had to get a Aquaman under the Endless Winter, he would go with maybe a Justice League setup. So you could mix and match, because a lot of times when they do these waves, they scale with one another, but then they don't scale with other waves that have come out, like the Last Night on Earth, for instance. But in either case, good things, bad things, or otherwise, McFarlane Toys sure put out a lot of different figures, and I am curious to see where they go with 2022. If I could make any more recommendations past the ones we've already talked about, I would say give us a little bit more classic iterations of certain characters, because that is really what I'd like to see. But I am curious to know what you guys think about the DC Multiverse line. Is it for you? Have you been collecting? What did you think about this past year? Comment below, let me know. Let's talk everything DC Multiverse. And I'm going to leave you guys with that. As always, drink some great coffee, eat some great food, but most importantly, remember, in whatever happens in 2022, I wish you nothing but the best, both in life and your collections. And when you do, let me know what you found. I'll talk to you guys soon. Adios.